Bonjour Stacy. Je ne comprendez-vous ton microphone? Ta microphone. Hey, Josh. Maybe it's my speakers.
I was muted. I didn't realize.
Okay. You can never tell until
all you guys co-hosts here.
Are you sticking around, Sam?
I don't know what you guys talked about. I was just checking in because I had a bunch of realtors just walk through the house and I just got done with
Oh,
that.
wow. Did it feel good?
You weren't able to purchase it?
No, I actually was able to purchase it, but within a month, multiple real estate agents have come by saying, "Hey, why don't you sell your house and we'll tell you how much it's worth." So I'm not interested in selling it. I'm just interested in what they think it's worth.
Okay, good. Don't sell it until I get out there.
Get out there. Get your butt out here.
I need 2 years.
Get your butt out here, Stacy. And Joshua, and Alex, and Colin, and everybody else. Actually, Kayla's coming in November. I don't know if I mentioned this.
I should really rent a camper and just do a tour.
Collect everybody.
Yeah, in COVID, a lot of people have done that. My niece rented a camper for about a month, went all the way through like Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Wyoming, I think.
Yeah, that would solve the issue with my dog, because that's really the issue.
I mean, you can bring your dog, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't go anywhere without him. I can't.
Right.
I'm a single mom.
Well, I've got 4 golden, so whatever you feel, I've got 4X as far as travel options.
Yeah. Well, I assume you get somebody to stay at your house if you have to leave.
Oh, no, there's actually a pretty close canine resort nearby, and I've done that. Although with 4 dogs, it gets expensive.
Yeah, I would have somebody stay at my house that I know that likes the dog. Yeah, I'm very picky with my babysitters.
Yeah, no, I've had that also. Yeah, it's 4 dogs and 2 cats, so it can't go too far without also taking care of the 2 cats.
That's nice. Yeah.
So what was unblocked today?
Oh, I don't know.
Josh dropped off.
I thought that I was just going to listen in the background because I was hoping to get dressed and I was going to venture out. But I thought that Josh was going to continue a conversation with Joel, that gets a little bit more, I don't know the word. That's what I thought the point was.
Yeah. So I have no dog in this race. I just showed up because my real estate people left, and we'll see what's going on.
Well, I'll bring up something. And I don't mean it to get personal, so let's hope it doesn't go there. But in a private, this kind of, to me, this fits the area that's in between Doug and Sam. Oh, you know what? Joel's here, so forget it. I'll save it for another time.
Between Doug and Sam, there's a lot of space.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, for hosting.
You're welcome.
I'd like you to finish the idea, though, Stacy. If we don't get into it, it'd still be nice to hear what the idea is.
Yeah, but it will go off into a tangent because it will hit personal. It will. I'm not going to do another time, Colin. I'll do it.
Oh, come on. Give me a chance to take it personally. Come on, Stacey.
Go ahead. So Joel and Josh, I'm going to turn off my screen and just listen to the conversation pick up because I got to get dressed.
Okay. And I'll just say I had to switch over to data from my phone because the internet up here is being spotty. I don't know if I'm going to go in and out, but it just went crazy. But I just wanted to, you were saying, Joel, the question, if I remember, maybe you could state it again, the question about higher and lower consciousness of wisdom or knowledge as a bodhisattva. I was just didn't want to cut you off with that, just to understand where you're coming from.
The whole idea of the bodhisattva and the high ascended is they truly perceive and understand what we are as living beings. Not to see it in the abstract, but to consciously be aware of the light and the functional natures of it. But if we think about it as growing up and as learning, I said there's spectrums, so there's ways to perceive that truth. So you can end up with, we could call the rationalist one spectrum of viewing existence and the emotionalist another. Or along those lines, you get my meaning though. You've got those who sort of are more feeling existence and those who want to rationalize it. Within that is a difference in how they see the world. But you've got the complexity to it. We know our species has evolved. We know we have created stories and told stories. So our ability to perceive and conceive of those storylines and emotional realities has evolved as well. We have come from a lower life form with little cognition to a higher life form with high cognition. So how far does that cognition and perception go? I mean, a few people here have done trips. That isn't hallucinations. That's always been utter nonsense. It's sensory perceptions that are normally cut out of your perception because they're not needed. So what happens when you start understanding those, when they start getting included in your perception rather than taken out by your abstracting mind? And this is part of the point, is the whole abstract, every part of it is nonsense. It's all purely dimensional. We create the abstracted picture, as it were, and overlap that onto reality and then call that reality. What we view of the outside world with our eyes, what everyone thinks and believes is reality, isn't, and we've proven it. Because if a person is colorblind and can't see that color, that's not in their perception of reality. So we have to recognize that's part of perception. That's part of each being. There is a variance in what they're perceiving, and there is a variance in what they can understand from what they're perceiving.
Filters.
This is part of the problem in religions, is that the word use is wrong for the person. The person doesn't understand the word. Just go, word.
Do you mind if we take out the word religion and put the word dimension back in? And it reminds me of that idea of a flatlander with 2 dimensions, and something is coming in and out of their dimensional space, but they can't see it until it's on that flat surface. But then if you extract up or out or whatever direction you want to go in vector space, you get to the E8 lattice of many, 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 many dimensional spaces. But what I was talking about is a real abstract concept or a thought experiment where you jump outside of that dimensional space. So go back to before the Big Bang, where nothing is existing, and sitting with that nothing space, and then allowing for a whole nother abstraction that's beyond anything your brain can even comprehend to come in.
What if there was never a nothing? What if there was always an infinite everything and it went the other way?
That's the point. That's exactly it. I think you're muted, Barry.
In the center. Yes,
You're muted, Barry.
Yeah, I just had to get my mind. We're already in that scenario like the Flatlander, except that for us, the dimension that we're missing is the time dimension. So if something is happening in time, we get the time slice of it right now. And then the next instant, we get the next time slice. And so we don't see the whole song, the whole score. We get incremental slices of it. And it's the same phenomenon as something from the 3rd dimension passing through the 2-dimensional. And so for us, seeing patterns in time is much harder than seeing patterns in space. You can look at the wallpaper and say, oh, this wallpaper is repeating pattern. You can see that right now and forever. But if it's repeating in time, takes a long time to get the data and then to realize that it was a pattern in time.
Have you noticed the beautifulness of what we're doing right now and the joyousness of Colin using his screen? Well, I'm not seeing the true now that you've just projected. I'm seeing that moments later. But because Colin has his screen up, I've also got the screen of you that he's seeing that's coming up after he's seen what I've just seen. So I've got a slight time delay between the two images I've got of you, which is allowing me to see two separate time slices at the same time.
Right. And then you can do calculus because you can predict trajectories if you can get two time slices.
Yeah, and I was going to say the exciting thing that I'm super stoked on is I was talking to Jim Green, who was the chief scientist for NASA for many years. He just retired, and he confirmed they're launching in December on the 18th, the James Webb Telescope. So that's going to be exciting to be able to see different slices that we've never seen before and extrapolate out of the spectrum of light coming from long distances away to points where our brains can barely even comprehend. But that to me is what's exciting about meditating and looking at the stars is, you know, the light you're looking at happened a long time ago, but it's coming to your eyes now of a star dying in a part of the sky. Long time ago, there was millions of lives that went through millions of infinite things way far away, and the little bit of light is coming to you sometime later. And that's the way I look at reality, is you can get to a point where you're a bodhisattva, you understand nirvana, you can even manipulate this space-time, but at some point you have to, if you believe, and this is a belief system, that you are one with everything, that everything is part of you, then you will eventually go back to being a gas in a corner of the sky and have to do it all over again and form into planets and form into minerals and form into bacteria and have memes, and those memes are genes and blah, blah, blah. And then it all happens, and then you do it all over again. And that's an infinite loop as well. And that gets a little heady.
Not you, but part of you. Or some molecular part of you. Yeah.
That's the physical dimensional reality.
Yeah.
What if the soul, the thing that is sensing, isn't exactly within that plane, but is more driven by something, the lowest or highest level, that effectively moves in another side by side, in another kind of geometry. Like your material plane is this geometry, and this, then next to it
you
is
have
your
nothing
soul plane geometry.
Or what if inside of the one outside is the inside of your soul? That's what I'm saying. It gets really heady. Like, from my own experience, I'll just share, is I wanted to vibrate to a different frequency. So my friend had 5-MeO DMT, and he said, you take one puff, let it sit for half a second, then you take 2 more, and then you're going to go, and I said, okay, let's do it. And so I did, and it vibrated me out of this dimension, but I could see the world, but everything changed. I saw space and time move. I saw the grid lines of the universe. And then I stepped out of this time period. I was in a different time. It lasted for me about an hour, but in this time period, he was watching me for about 3 to 4 minutes. But I had an hour go by, and then I evaporated out of existence into I just saw a light, and it got brighter, 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 and I was gone. And I woke up with my hands clasped like this, and I didn't know if I was coming back. And it was very scary. And I do not recommend that drug to anybody, even though it's getting popular, because you are literally gone. Like, I was gone. I did not exist anymore. And it was like dying. It was very much it wasn't an ego death.
I don't know if it's so much the drug. Now, maybe certain drugs can do certain things, like the whole LSD story is quite a story. But
here's the
I had that
conundrum, Colin.
I had
It's
that
not
same
a drug.
experience. hold on, I had that same experience, but it was with
Oh,
getting
please.
my wisdom teeth out. And they gave me this drug and they put me under. Of course, they're ripping part of me, out of my head. The least favorite part, I like people to rip stuff around. You know, I operate on my leg, but not my head. You know what I mean? Anyway, luck of the draw. And I pictured I was in a petri dish and I could see these concentric rings kind of radiating out. And I think it was just my retinas in my eyes squeezing, and the blood in my eyes was making these rings. But I felt like I was going down, down into this petri dish. I didn't see grids of the universe. I saw me turning into an amoeba. And, and I'm just thinking, like you said, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was like, how can this be? How can I, is this reality? Like I was trying, like my conscious mind was trying to somehow absorb the fact that I've been drugged heavily, and I'm trying to scoop my way back from some part of my brain that I've never found myself in or never had the wheel before. You know what I mean? So all those near-death experiences and stuff, like I've always said, the brain is a really strange place to be, but that's where we are. And we got neurons all over our body. So we're talking about systems here, right? So there's systems, trees and plants. And so this is my spirituality, not my soul, but my spirituality is there is a conversation of chemicals and vibration going on. And I guess if you look at what's directly beside, adjacent, the next thing, adjacent to the next thing, adjacent to the next thing, in whatever dimension you're measuring, then maybe everything is in some quote unquote way connected, right? So, but I think if you're looking at it from, something happened, a life event happened, and therefore there's a reason for that, the leaps of discernment that people make is what drives me crazy. So it is quite obvious that we are stuck inside of our heads and we cannot fathom the stardust we are. That's true. But Joel is thinking that maybe he has reached a newer levels enough times within that he thinks he's picked up a new hammer.
Careful
maybe
saying what Joel's thinking. Yeah.
Well, no, I think
we don't know.
No, I want him to tell me, but it feels like to me he has an understanding that's like having a special hammer from another dimension, that he understands how that works, and he's
I'm
trying
not
to
even
explain other
seeing
people.
the things.
Yeah, well, you said with a greater understanding of that dimension, so I just threw the tool in there as something that you could use, but awareness of whatever it is. And that's the better that I always seem to want to search for. If there is a better, why is it better? And how can it be, scientifically categorized as better? And maybe it's just a human thing that's within the monkey tribe, that it's better for that tribe, or it's better for that era. And the book Sapiens has played a big role on my big picture thinking. The last 70,000 years of apparently the cognitive revolution. Anyway, what were our dreams in the dentist chair 70,000 years ago when somebody was, ripping it out with their bare hand? I don't know, but I know drugs have been around for a long time, and it definitely changes our consciousness, right?
Well, here's the interesting bit of information, Colin, is the drug that I was talking about exists in all elements of all plants and in our bodies at all times. It's a drug that we produce.
Dimethyltryptamine. It's produced in the pineal gland.
What's it called?
Dimethyltryptamine.
DMT.
Mm-hmm.
DMT. I've heard of the one that the psychologists or whatever, or psychiatrists have been using to MDMA. Is that what it is?
No,
That's ecstasy.
it's not.
That's ecstasy. Yeah, that's another one that I hear is popular for medical profession to use, or we're using. But this is not a medical thing, but it's a known thing.
So imagine
It's
this,
shamanic.
though. Imagine inside of your body is a whole bunch of colonies of living creatures that are communicating to each other, and they have direct access through photons of light to communicate to your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system through a nerve ending that travels through your whole body called the vagus nerve, that goes to all the organs in your body. And then you have to ask yourself a very hard question, is who's controlling who in that situation? Are you controlling reality, or are they controlling you to perceive reality? And are these drugs that you're taking in the dentist chair or being stimulated through a vaporized, heated up form, who is actually controlling the signals of consciousness?
It's interesting. That's takes us into the free will discussion, you know, and I guess Dan Dennett's kind of where I sit on that one.
Or you can take yourself out of the free will discussion and just say, as an observer, it's happening.
This I know, and that's Glenn's big thing, that he knows for sure that something is happening. That's, you know, he really holds on to that. Like that's profound to him.
But I'm going back to what Joel was talking about bodhisattva. And the way I understood it was that you're trying to experience what's happening in order to share, if you perceived any kind of knowledge out of that happening, in order to share it with someone else so that they can have their own happening. And then everybody can reach the shores of nirvana together, not from top down or down up or any perceived hierarchical vector point, but from all vector points to where there gets to be an ultimate no more vector points, aka nibbana, aka a place where you're no longer you experiencing you helping someone else. It's just happening. And that's an abstract concept that I don't pretend to understand in this reality, but in an inner understanding within myself, it feels good.
I'm afraid I have to run. I have to do
that
some
made
things
sense.
for work for tomorrow.
No problem, Joel. Thank you
Here's
for
one for you though, to leave you with a thought. If creation is infinitely creating and infinitely destroying, doesn't that mean there will always be the creation of new souls and always the end to those souls? So maybe the Bodhisattvas are just trying to guide you to your end, having reached a level of their themselves.
Joel, if you can watch the Netflix documentary Fantastic Fungi, because I think that's the key to it all.
I have to run, as I say. It's good seeing you all.
Thanks, Joel.
At some point.
Thank you. And I was going to say, while we're still on the call, oh, go ahead, Joel.
I'm host, so I can't leave. How do
you can make someone else the host.
I think we're all hosts.
Let me see.
I see security.
Oh, yeah, good.
We're all hosts, I think.
Good. Excellent.
Thanks for checking that.
We could go into a breakout room.
I was going to say, Colin. Yeah, I was going to say, I just been meeting with a bunch of really interesting people the last 5 months, and they want to create a super reality where we're teaching the computer how to understand reality as Carl Sagan. So they're trying to build a digital twin of Carl Sagan so that this GPT-4 of Carl Sagan can teach reality to other people. So if you guys are interested in that, I'm going to schedule a Zoom call if anyone's interested. Sam as well, if you're listening.
That sounds interesting. Any experiments? You know, I've been talking about doing some experiments too with a video trying to do sense making, and I'm trying to find I'm hoping Glenn will help me, because that'll add some balance to the procedure, and other people too, right? The more people who join in, and it's not my project, the better success it'll have as far as having a group vibe, right? I don't want it to be a documentary on why this group doesn't work for me. I'd rather it be, here's what these people are really trying to do to lift each other up and find the best in each, and what we're trying to do. I have a problem with, and I won't talk much about my project, but the spaces that keep morphing from a personal space to a professional space to looking for a lighthouse, and, you know, then a global space. So it's almost like the town square, really. And that's what Sam says. And I'm looking for some more structured things like you're talking about, people stepping up and saying, let's talk about this and do a little series on it. And I can see Barry doing a couple of series as well. In fact, he's got a ton of stuff, but how do we schedule those channels to not, so that it flows well without, thinking we have to do it in the main show? It's kind of the thing.
Yeah,
And Sam's using this channel right now, so it's already happening, right? Like it's kind of already happening because this is after barn raising. So this is a new thing. It's been starting to happen. And it's kind of like I was saying, if this continues on, maybe now we've reached a milestone where the GCC is an entity that can have a trust and a Zoom account or a storehouse. I don't know what I'm saying. A foundation looking for, is it worth it?
Let's extrapolate out. Do you mind, Colin, if we extrapolate out of the old data storage and data knowledge to a new
memory? I'm into memory because remember the computers, they, in 5,000 years, will any of this exist? Right. And that's what you're saying about Doug.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to expand the thinking. So I've been working with people who are reading GPT-3 specific data sets and then taking a bandwidth from 0 to 100 of ways to extrapolate and machine learn those data sets. And then it's actually pulling in information. We're testing it on Clubhouse with letting the GPT-3 have conversations with random people. So it's really fascinating. People come in a room, they ask the computer something, and the computer extrapolates through that data set and the way it was positioned, maybe to be more snarky or less snarky or more philosophical, more science-based. And then the computer itself is taking language through the process of what GPT-3 is, of synthesizing the information that was put into it to come out relating to the question that it was asked. Is that too heady, or did I lose anything?
Oh no, that's definitely in relation to some of the stuff that I'm thinking about too, with being able to reset the frame so somebody else can relive the story that somebody else is projecting. So, okay, that's how I did it. How would you do it? And so the computer learned the situation and says, now it's your turn to choose A, B, or C. And then, you could go back and look, and Doug would say, well, see this where you chose the tool, that was a waste of your time. And Josh would say, and maybe you shouldn't have chose this because that was a waste of time. But look what happened in our scenarios.
So here.
Uh-oh, Josh, you're breaking up. I see Barry really well, so I guess it's Josh's connection. Oh yeah, he's on data.
Yeah, Josh is frozen or freezing. He's getting a.
Where it gets interesting, the GPT-3 can become Doug. Oh yeah.
Uh-oh, GPT-3. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think you're back with us. You can come in. Yeah.
Check one, check two.
Check one, check two.
Yeah, I'm on a Verizon data at 2 bars. Check one, check two. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Yep, I'll end it because my data is not so great, but I just wanted to say, if anyone is interested in working with the GPT-3 protocol, we can extrapolate from there. And I would be honored to invite you to a call just to discuss the possibilities of what your interests are.
Yeah.
And the idea is to build a super reality that can teach children. The whole concept is from a gentleman who works with autistic kids, and he runs an educational software company to teach people so that we capture information that isn't Disney's version of it or Google's version of it. We create it as a community, as a global challenges community, so that we can share information in a way that actually teaches kids something valuable. And with, I would like you, Barry, with ethics. I've been talking to people about Wikipedia and your story about how the ethics were moved out of it, because I want something that teaches my daughter in a way that she becomes a good human being, not a little piece of shit. So yeah, that's my ask. So I just want to share that. I'm complete.
Well, discussing ethical conundrums can be very interesting for a person at a certain age or stage of their development. In my case, we were teenagers in high school in Omaha, and only less than a dozen of us out of a class of, I don't know, a couple hundred decided to spend one afternoon a week discussing ethical conundrums. That's a pretty small subset, and it's a pretty young age. But you know, I mean, Plato wrote a book called Nicomachean Ethics at the request of one guy who wanted Plato to write a book for his own son, for one. So that book was written for one child.
Interesting.
It's still used today as a textbook in college ethics. You can use the Plato's Nicomachean Ethics, but the name Nicomachean was the name of I think the father or the son or the surname for whom Plato wrote the book. He had one student.
Yeah, I also like the what I was hearing from you a while back about the Jewish tradition constantly changing. And I think it's important that ethics is a living, breathing thing and not just this is written down and this is so it is. It's something we continue to look at. Like we had that 4-hour discussion on predictive policing, and I think that needs a little bit more ethical study of how you police moving into the future with so much predictive knowledge as opposed to experiential knowledge.
I don't know if you had connected yet when I was mentioning when Stacy was on, and maybe only Doug, when the police in Moab, Utah intervened in that traffic stop of that couple that disappeared, it's quite possible that the intervention of the police triggered what happened next. Will we ever know that? Probably not, because you only have one data point. But it's plausible that police intervention was part of the backstory that triggered what happened the following week or two. They damn near put her in jail.
Yeah, I saw a blip of this. What are we talking about? Because I just saw it come across my desk and I went, oh, I'm not clicking on that. Someone's missing their fiance or something. Is this what we're talking about?
She was 22, he's 23. They were camping out in the national parks in Colorado, Utah, Wyoming. And they had a little bit of a squabble, and they were arguing and having a squabble as he was driving the van. And somebody had called in 911 of a possible domestic dispute. And when the cop pulled them over, the evidence that the cops had would have classified her as the physical aggressor and him as the victim. And if they had enforced the letter of law, she would have had to spend the night in jail. And they made a decision not to file charges, not to cite her. But it's very likely that, that coming that close to being put in jail, just a little 110-pound girl being the aggressor, but in fact, that's what the evidence showed. And even though they didn't arrest her or cite her, or she didn't have to appear in court, nonetheless, that afternoon could have very well been a significant factor in what happened next. Well, we don't know what happened next. Other than that,
is somebody missing?
Yeah, the 22-year-old girl went missing about a week or two later, and the fiance, the male, ended up driving back home in the van without her. And and now he's missing too. He sort of skedaddled. Don't know why, but technically they're both missing, and there's no crime identified because they don't know where she is.
And they don't know where he is either.
Well, he supposedly went for a hike in a little local hiking area back in his hometown, but it's little. It's not little. It's 25,000 acres or whatever it is. But he's quote missing from his residence, and she's missing somewhere out in Wyoming or Idaho or someplace incommunicado. And there's almost no information available on which to draw any conclusions. And yet the general public is drawing all kinds of conclusions and theories. And, there's maybe hundreds of theories of what happened. Probably none of them correct. And all kinds of condemnations and who's the victim and who's the perpetrator and who's guilty. And it's really a story about our culture not being able to make sense out of negligible data, but a missing person.
That's fascinating. I'll have to look into it. I try not to read the news lately. So I see things and I go, I'm not going to click on that.
Well, I mean, the media is having a field day with it because it's a human interest story, but there's almost no information.
It reminds me of a story in the 80s in Western Massachusetts, and it's totally different, but it was a killer who killed some people and then took off, and the police were trying to find him. He was worked in the military and killed his girlfriend horrifically. They found her body at the parking lot at the mall I go to. So it's very close to our community. And he was known in the community as being obsessed by the Halloween movies, the killer Halloween movies. So he killed her in a fashion like the movie. And it was 3 weeks before Halloween. So it huge media story, because is this guy going to show up on Halloween and start killing again? And they kept saying we spotted his car in the town that I was building a house in. And then I had to go to the house that had no doors or windows on it. And my dad was like, yeah, go turn the lights on in the basement. I'm like, you turn the lights on in the basement. I'm not doing that. He's like, no, just, it's fine. Just go turn the lights on. Yeah. But they found him 3 miles from our house that we were building in the woods, and he hung himself from a tree in the woods.
Oh, he committed
and some
suicide.
Hunters found him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the speculation for those 4 weeks of where he was, and all the people that said they saw him, and the car was left at this one place, and before they found the body, there was speculation for 4 weeks. It was very scary.
Yeah. Well, the public's not getting very much information. Like, for example, they both had cell phones, which ping towers if they're turned on. But that information, assuming that they've got it, hasn't been released. So presumably the FBI can track where they've been pinging cell towers before they vanished. And the public doesn't have that information. They're just, making up these wild theories of what happened.
I think the media needs some money, so they're just having a field day with it, probably, to get views and clicks. And
yeah, absolutely. And so, talk about ethics. This is the ethics of the media, the ethics of the public who are telling the story, and the ethics of the officials, the police and the FBI and other officials who are attending to the case, who are trying to be tight-lipped because it's an open case and there's not even known to be a crime. So they don't want to come out and accuse anybody of anything if there's no crime, but they don't have any information. So, and it's quite possible that the intervention of the police in this one traffic stop could have been a major factor in what happened next. Who knows?
Very interesting. Also reminds me of the boy in the balloon that was taken off, and there was a boy hanging on a balloon for a while. Then it turns out he wasn't really on the balloon, but everyone thought that he was flying around in a balloon. And yeah, the information age and how the ethics of journalism have degraded through the monetary system is what I've been following. There's a guy named Jimmy Dore, who's a comedian who got into politics some years back, and he's bragging about how he can discern the truth faster as a pot smoking comedian than CNN or other places, because they're not using ethics, and he is. Yeah. So he's a very interesting study.
It's also about diplomacy too, right? Like, certain people are under the constraints of their organization, and Norm Macdonald was an exception to that, who just passed away. I don't know, love him or hate him. He definitely would say whatever he wanted to say. I think he lost his spot on Saturday Night Live.
Well, he famous.
Yeah, he
famously. Go ahead, Barry.
He was criticizing which president? Maybe Bush. I don't remember which president.
Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton.
And he wouldn't stop making sort of not off-color jokes, but a little bit over-the-top jokes, I guess. And they let him go from Saturday Night Live. And they kind of faded from the scene because he ended up battling cancer for the last 10 years of his life, which he kept out of the public.
I'm a huge fan of his. He didn't fade from the scene at all. He actually got his own TV show after Saturday Night Live and went on to a lot of success.
Yeah, he specialized a bit. He's a known and loved comedian within the industry. For the most people.
I love him.
Where does he draw the line? I don't even know. Like rosy jokes and.
I think he was only 61 when he died a couple of days ago.
That's right.
Pretty young, but he had some kind of cancer. I don't remember if they disclosed which kind of cancer it was, but he'd been battling it for a decade.
But an example of somebody who said, you know what, I am going to take this path. Like, and he says he believes in God, and he says all kinds of things. He says he hasn't been educated. So sort of like Josh was saying, somebody like Jimmy Dore or Norm Macdonald, they just speak from the cuff. And I think, was that what Nora Bateson was kind of alluding to, that these people can really sense make better than the experts? And I don't know, better, I choose terrible words, but rely on the common person to be able to be trusted as a reliable source of sense making, I guess is what she's saying. And it comes down to what we're allowed to say and when we say it, and who do we trust enough that we could open up and be vulnerable to actually say something that might not be 100% true, because isn't that most everything?
The answer to that is your psychologist. You can say anything to your psychologist, and he swore or she is sworn to secrecy, and you can completely unload bare your soul to your psychologist, and you won't be arrested unless you confess to a real crime. And then
so who was Doug talking about today? That the person who understands or gets him with X, I don't even know what the X was, more than his family and his friends. What was he talking about? Who was he talking about? I couldn't pick that up.
I don't have enough context to figure out what you're referring back to.
Yeah, no, he was just saying how it was such a beautiful experience for him that he finally had somebody who really did something in regards to X.
Yeah, he's talked about working with some kind of a coach.
Yeah.
Way back, but he didn't go into a lot of detail, except the coach had suggested, I guess, some exercises which he tried, and they did work. But I don't recall how much he disclosed of it.
Was that recent, or that wasn't recent then?
No, I think he said it
No.
quite a while back, maybe 10, 20
Okay.
years. I don't know. Not recent.
He definitely said within the last 5 years, he's taken quite a paradigm shift, I guess. So,
Well, yeah, he wrote a book. I mean, people don't write books unless they have something to say that they, sort of novel in their life.
Yeah, he's I don't know, like I refer to I think we're in the model world. That's how I can compare one thing to another, is have a reliable model that at least speaks to some aspect. It's really hard to find the models that relate to the label on the being around Doug can.
Well, it's worse than that. I mean, you talk about science and making scientific models. You start with physics, because inanimate objects behave in a very simple way and consistent way. And so you start with, motion of inanimate objects in physics, and then you go to chemistry, which is more complicated, and the models get messier. And then you go to biology. Hi, Cosella. And then you go from biology to tribal cultures and communities and governments and sociology and psychology. And pretty soon the models have so damn many variables and so complex interrelationships that the models get very soft and fuzzy and unreliable.
Well, we were talking about variables today, and check this out. This is this GPT stuff that Josh is talking about. This is GPT-3, and this article is about an open source version that's trying to come and take away the stranglehold monopoly that apparently Microsoft has on the protocol of this GPT-3 1.75b, and that refers to I can't believe I closed that, but we'll go back there.
You're way over my head, Colin. I don't even know what GPT stands for. It would take me.
That's just the technology, that's just the technology to say the computer that is the holding the services for the AI to train models. So GPT is a model robot trainer. So you give it data.
Like learning machines?
Yep, GPT training machine. And right here, it says it quite clearly that they're using GPT-2 used ranging from, the researchers trained a series of smaller models ranging from 125 million parameters to 13 billion parameters.
Yeah.
To compare, yes, wow. It's like
look at how much data. You're going to have terabytes of data, which for somebody like me is just, well, God bless you, but I'm not going to be able to process what you're talking about. I get the idea, but I don't really. I mean, somewhere I read that the human brain can record about as much information as would fit in 50,000 books, which is a modest library. but that's a lifetime of information. It's
Hmm.
no more than about 50,000 books.
Well, just for an introduction, I find it better for me to try to find the source than me to try to explain my feeble understanding of it. Unless I really know something, it's hard to convey it.
Well, yeah.
But here it says, when it comes to a large language models, it turns out that even 1.5 billion parameters is not large enough. Well, that was the size of GPT-2. So that was the size of GPT-2 is 1.5 billion parameters. Well, that was a transformer-based language model that OpenAI Research released to much fanfare last year. Today, at the San Francisco-based AI company, outdid itself, announcing an upgraded GPT-3 with a whopping 175 billion parameters.
So are the models linear or are they non-linear? Do you have so if you have cross product terms, then you got to multiply the so many billion by itself. If they're linear.
Well, here's some terms. There's adopts and scales up. It's kind of like the NLP arms race it refers to, so natural language processing, but it adopts and scales up GPT-2 model and architecture, including modified initializations, pre-normalizations, which is data cleaning, normalization, and reversible tokenization, which is a kind of a new one to me. I guess that's going backwards on your parsing to unparse and reparse. That shows strong performance on many NLP tasks and benchmarks in 0 shot, 1 shot, and fewer shot settings. So yeah, it does get into some learning curve that you have to get the nomenclature of what's going on.
Let's look like non-linear, so you do have cross product terms.
Yeah. So,
which means that.
But anyway, Josh could really get us into this.
Number of coefficients is going up as the square or the cube of the number of parameters.
Gary's right on it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So it's
and almost everything's non-linear. Things have interactions. So as one goes up, the other goes down. This is the thing we talked about, I think, last week, that as empathy goes up, self-centeredness goes down. That's sort of being self-centered versus being empathetic, kind of inversely related. So you can't simply have the two parameters independent. They're not independent. They're inversely related. And that
it's a whole new way of thinking. It's quite challenging and quite interesting.
So yeah, if you had a screen, if you had a screen with Norm Macdonald on one side saying anything he wants to, and looking at the parameters up along the top of the screen of his empathy and his
jocularness. He's being jocular. It's another slider. How jocular.
Yeah, it's sort of like a seesaw, right?
Is he trolling and is he joshing or is he seriously criticizing?
Yeah, there's probably a whole bunch of seesaws, right? But you're saying it's a seesaw relationship. When one side goes up, the other side goes down, right?
Exactly. So, and you can't overlook those. Those are very common.
And then put one with Obama on the other side, giving a speech to the world, basically, his country and the world. And how much is he not saying that he wants to say? And look at Edward Snowden. He's watching the screen with knowledge that General Hayden was lying when he was talking about the secret programs. So he could have, and he did. But what if he had GPT had a way that Edward Snowden would have already, through Josh, preloaded the data set, and there's no way Hayden could have got away with that shit. Like, that's the secrecy thing.
Obama's saying, yes, we can. And the models are saying, no, we can't. It's too late. The environment's going to hell in a handbasket, and no matter what we do, it's too late. So Obama can say, yes, we can, and the models can say, sorry, it's too late.
And there you have the cynical conclusion that we need to be lied to.
Well, so it's the what was the ship that went down with the iceberg?
The Tin Man, Titanic.
The Titanic, yeah. I mean, so are you going to tell people we're all going to die, or are you going to try to keep their spirits up as long as you can, even though they're going to die? I mean, it's one of those.
Yeah.
You
don't know.
What's the right thing to do for somebody's emotions when the end is nigh?
Actually, that might be a better analogy than the cat. Doug swiping me off the table with the cat paw would be, Doug's trying to console me on the deck of the Titanic. It's okay, Colin. You don't have to worry about the future. You don't have to worry about the past. Just
you don't have a future, but I'm not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Just don't be surprised when the curtain comes down.
Is Josh back? Oh, Josh is back. I don't want to cover him up here. Let's go back here.
I was just gonna say, Colin, just make sure you have a good lifeboat, and it's not just women and children.
I venture out. Oh, I think Josh is cut. I venture out into these waters because in GCC because I find a space. I don't really venture out too far in other spaces. So this is kind of my golf game, right? Where, you know, I enjoy speaking in this group and exploring things. But I find that my expectations have to be, you know, hedged with the
modulate your expectations.
Yes, very much so. So, you know, it is about the understanding experiment
The
in ways
higher
we
your
can use tools.
expectations, the worse is your disappointment when they're not met.
Well, my disappointment is that the space of the GCC has morphed from being, okay, we're kind of running a flow between the 4 shows, which when you were introduced to, when you came to the GCC, I think you were probably explained that there was 4 shows and they have a flow to them where one kind of feeds the needs of the next. So there's sort of a pattern to it, a system, as it were, to the shows.
I didn't have a
That's
model of GCC when I first came here, and I couldn't get a model. I was trying to, I thought if I lurk, I could sort of determine what's the model, and I kept going, what's the model? What is this? Is this an intentional community? What are we doing here? I could never get an answer to that. I finally came out and asked the question, and I found out that it doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, no, it's the abyss. It is what you need it to be. But at the same time, I can learn a lot about people because they get to, you know, pick up the bat and give it a swing, right? And that's what I like to see. And when I'm grabbing the bat and I'm swinging it, I feel like Doug saying, "What are you doing over in the parking lot? The ball game's over here."
Yeah, I'm waving in the bullpen. I'm gonna wave bye-bye. I gotta take care of the little one.
Have a beautiful day, Josh. Thanks for your time.
And I look forward to more good conversations. There's a lot. And Barry's, I mentioned the birth of the word from the MIT Media Lab in 2012. It's a TED Talk. And if you have a chance, the birth of the word.
Okay.
It's probably one of the most interesting data knowledge graphs that MIT has done that I've been privy to, and that was in 2012. So where they've extrapolated from 2012 to 2022 is where I want to pick up. So with GPT-3 didn't exist back then. So it's going to be very interesting.
I'll have to look for that. Okay, well, it's a nice
I've got it. I've got it. I can send it into the barn raising link there. Yeah, it's been nice.
And thank you, Sam, for hosting this. And I'll talk to you guys later. Say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, baby.
Bye.
See you later.
Yep. Okay, Sam, I'm gonna do something that I forgot to do yesterday, which is to see if I can end the recording for you. Let me see if that works.
Yes, as host, you can.
Oh, no, no, the
You can
record
just
button
end the
only lets me
meeting.
start recording. That's a lot. So you have to end the recording, but you're here, so it doesn't matter.
Actually, if you end the meeting, the recording stops.
Oh, it did. I thought yesterday when I just ended, I thought, oh, I should have stopped the recording. Oh, it doesn't matter. Talk to you later.
No, you have, if you actually end the meeting, that cuts everybody off. Okay, and then the recording stops.
Okay, so I will click end meeting for all.
Right.
Okay?
If you just leave, then other people
You're-
are still there and the recording still goes.
So I don't know which I did yesterday.
The recording was still going when I found it yesterday.
All right, so in the future, I will do end meeting for all, and that will stop the recording.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Take care.
Okay, later.
Bye-bye.